Welcome to the Stream of Art podcast. Join me, Robyn,
and me, Michelle, as we chat openly about personal growth, creativity, and building a career in the arts. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21st episode of the Stream of Art podcast. Today's episode is a continuation of our conversation from last week. So you may recall that Robyn and I decided to have a bit of a mental regroup. So our conversation kind of hits on a bunch of different topics, and we spoke for a couple of hours and then decided to split that into two parts so that we wouldn't have to skip a week while Robyn is away. But we will be back next week for a regular episode. But until then, I hope you enjoy part 2 of our conversation. So yeah, since I know I brought up a few books, something we have talked about is doing like a book club style episode. So at some point, no promises as to when that'll happen. That is something that is going to happen where we'll have a full episode. We're going to talk about a book and talk about, kind of give like a rough outline of what the book was about, of course, but then, more specifically try to talk about how it might be applied or how we are applying the ideas to our lives and to our art and all of that kind of thing. Just to also, and that's something I've been thinking a lot about with this podcast, is now that we're at a place where we are, consistent with our releases and all of that, I've been thinking about ways to like make it better, really, just to have different new exciting things that we do, and that's one of the things I know we've talked about before.
And it will actually motivate me to read, which is something I find hard to prioritize.
Yeah, and for me, I think too, like having to sit with a book and really put it into practice, sometimes I do find that challenging because as I've mentioned before, I go from one book to the next, to the next, to the next. So I'm not giving myself enough time to really digest the information. I always change and take away something because of the books I read, but not as much as I could get out of them for sure. So yeah, I'm excited about that prospect of, and maybe we can even hold ourselves to some kind of a schedule, like a once a month we do an episode kind of thing. Or is that too
That's
scary
too
for
much.
you to read?
Yeah, no, there's no way. Just like with I just don't have
once every 2 months, once every 3 months.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, I just I move through things too slowly. Yeah. Yeah, so book club, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, like, is there some sort of, like, if we, like, created a challenge for ourselves to, like, do over 2 weeks, and then we did, like, kind of, like, a recap episode on, like, and I don't know what the challenge would be, but some sort of creative challenge. I think one thing I'm kind of realizing is that, I also just want to acknowledge that I've been processing a lot of negativity over the past, like, hour of talking, so probably not the nicest thing to listen to, but that's where my head's at. But I've been realizing that one of the things I don't do enough of is just kind of like gathering creative ideas, like the creative gathering.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of nice to kind of issue challenges to each other around that sort of topic.
Yeah.
Like kind of like the artist date sort of thing, but maybe something that's like a little bit more longer lasting, and then doing an episode on like, how did that go for us? What did we learn? What did we gain from it? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I love the idea of having something where we have to then go take action on it, because it's so, and we've talked about this before, it's so easy to talk about these ideas, but putting them into practice is another thing. So I love the idea of a challenge, because definitely when you have a challenge, I mean, it's like your, 100-day challenge and my RPM challenge. Like when you have that kind of a challenge, it can really pull some interesting stuff out of you. Yeah. Even if it's just getting you to show up most days when that's a challenge, in just living like your everyday life, just to get that kind of time in. When you have something really concrete, it just helps to focus you, especially, I know you and I both struggle with having lots of ideas and feeling, I think, overwhelmed by like just the sheer volume of stuff we could be doing. So to have something that forces you to focus your attention can be very, very helpful, because then we get to channel all of that creative energy into just like that one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been very focused lately on like getting kind of getting my website up and doing the 100-day challenge, and like things have kind of gotten routine and feeling monotonous, and so I'm craving that kind of like something to shake things up.
Yeah.
And something to kind of think about and focus on that has nothing to do with trying to sell my work or trying to build a business, or something that's completely kind of outside of that, but still within the creative realm. I think that'd be good for my brain.
Yeah, I'm coming to realize that I crave novelty more than I ever let myself acknowledge. And it's such an interesting thing, because I'm somebody who loves routines and I love being disciplined. I love all of that. To have to acknowledge that side of myself, that actually there's a part of me that after a time becomes I feel very stifled by some of the routines that I've built. Yeah. But I felt like, no, that's not me. I love routines. It's all or nothing, but it's like, and I do love them. And I'm somebody who I can really only function when I have these systems and boundaries in place. But I'm trying to come up with some ways to keep myself from feeling that sense of confinement. And yeah, I think the idea of like infusing some kind of a creative challenge is like a great way to shake things up. And then I can get back into it and all of that. So yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, because the problem with routine is that time starts to go by very, very quickly when you're just doing the same things over and over and over again. That's where novelty is nice, because you like, if you spend the day away from your house, the day feels so much longer than it would if you were just in your house. The novelty makes time feel longer in a nice way.
Yeah.
So I think we all kind of, and it makes you feel alive too. And so I think we all kind of crave it. And it's definitely been missing for me for like quite a long time. And I think for me, it's necessary. Like I need those sorts of experiences in order to, like, I think it helps me refill my creative bucket, which is pretty low right now. So yeah.
Yeah, we should go do something once you're back from your trip.
Yes.
Even if we just like take a walk somewhere, go find somewhere in nature. I've been like itching to go for a walk somewhere that's not around the apartment building.
I'm scared of ticks.
We'll just go somewhere that doesn't have...
bad. They're so bad where we are. I think they're bad. I think they might be bad across Ottawa. Anyways, but yeah, like something that's change of scenery or whatever.
Yeah, we can go find like you can take me to the art gallery and show me.
Yes, force you to look at artwork.
Yeah. You'd be forcing me. Well, you might be. You just have to put me on a leash like one of those children, those unruly children. You have on the leashes where they make them now, where they have it almost like a little backpack with a little animal with the leash attached. It's like, you're not fooling anybody. That is still a leash. But just get me something that's a cute little animal, and I'll wear it like a little backpack. And then you can drag me around.
But what would be really funny is that I'd be holding it, but you'd just be walking beside me anyways. Like, it would look completely unnecessary.
It's like, your child is not misbehaving at all.
I mean, there's a height difference. So, like, if you were, like, from behind, if you had your hood up and stuff, and, like, people might think you're...
Put a ball cap on me, give me a juice box. Nobody would be able to tell the difference.
Juice box. And, like, those shoes that light up as you step.
Yeah.
Velcro shoes that light up as you step. Yeah.
Perfect. Would we get a discount that way? Would I get, like, the child's discount? Because we can go to the movies, too.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, you have to, like, you don't have a face that looks 12, So, like, you're... Sorry to break it to you. Sorry to disappoint you.
I look like somebody who's been through some stuff.
Yeah. You have that look about you.
I look very tired.
So you would have to, we could probably get away with it. You just have to, like, be facing away from the person.
Yeah. Just get a Halloween mask and just be like, oh, they're just really shy.
Yeah, that's right.
My brother and I used to have all of our Halloween costumes. We'd keep them because then we'd be able to play dress up through the year. So it's not weird. Like kids often keep their costumes. A kid's gonna be attached to it. Yeah, there you go.
No, I wouldn't question it. Well, we can try. We'll try to see if we can pull this off.
We'll update you all to see if our hijinks have succeeded. But yeah, anyways, I definitely agree. Like the change of scenery, I think for me, I'm feeling that so much right now, just being in this apartment constantly, and it's so different just living somewhere. Or I mean, I can walk to places, but it's not like it doesn't. It's a pretty busy street I live on, and it's I don't know, it's not very nice. I miss being able to walk somewhere with like greenery.
Yeah, you're in the city, right? Like it's you feel a little bit stuck, stifled. Yeah. I get that. Having lived in that area for a time.
Yeah.
Ish. That area kind of, but yeah. I don't have many other thoughts. This is kind of the mental regroup episode in which I complained about everything.
Yeah, I think actually that brings up the thing I wanted to talk about too, is just the idea of like mentally regrouping and how important that is to just be able to say, okay, we need to take not even just a step back, but just to stop, because we have been moving forward and just putting stuff out each week. Just the act of just stopping to just make sure everything's like the way we want it. And to be able to start putting into practice like different things. And this is like beyond the podcast, obviously. This is just something I'm trying to wrestle with right now as well, where I spent so much time feeling like I constantly had to be moving forward. And moving forward is definitely what you want to be doing. But again, you want to make sure, kind of like making sure you're solving the right problem. You want to make sure you're going in the right direction. And it's sort of, I think we've all had that experience of like literally walking somewhere or going somewhere we've never been before. And then all of a sudden you realize you've like way past the street you're supposed to turn down or whatever, like, you know, and you just, because you're so used to just moving, it's so easy to just keep going forward and not stop to question things and not stop to just take stock of your thoughts, take stock of how you feel, of just what's going on. So, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit just as far as, you know, just reviewing and reflecting and all of that goes. But I think we probably need to do that more often than we give ourselves. Certainly for me, I've still have not been able to lock in like a weekly review, or, you know, I'm still just not great with that. And I think part of that is still, again, that piece of me that feels like I have to constantly be moving.
Yeah.
Or I'm not making progress.
Yeah. But the moving is like, it's only useful if you're moving in the direction that serves you. And I think you're totally right. And I think this is kind of what I've been feeling, is I've been kind of moving forward in some ways, and now I feel this pressure to keep things moving. But then it's like I'm realizing like where I'm investing my energy, I haven't prioritized my tasks really well. So it's like I'm kind of investing energy in areas that I don't really need to be right now, but that's because it's the next logical step from what I was working on previously. But it's like, but right now I don't need to do that. Yeah. But I want to, because that's the forward momentum. And to switch would be to doing a sidestep. So yeah, like just, I don't know. I think for the next little while, I'm going to give myself a pause. Like I'm just going to, I think I'm feeling a drive to play a bit more with paint. And I think I'm just going to follow that instinct for a little bit and just kind of like pause on the other stuff that I've been trying to move forward. And I just need a break from trying so hard. So it feels like I try so hard. And what's crazy is that from an outside perspective, like if you were to look at me, you probably wouldn't think I was trying as hard as I am. You know, the output doesn't match how hard I'm trying on the inside, but that's just because the work I have to do to show up is just different than other people. There's
so much more.
A lot more mental work that I need to do just to remain functioning every day. And so I'm really tired of I'm really tired of just trying as hard as I'm trying.
Yeah.
And so I think at this point, I'm just going to stop for a little while and see where that goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how that lines up with me feeling like I feel like I want to overhaul things. I feel like, you know, when you get that feeling where you just want to hit a big reset, but maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm feeling very much the need to do like a Cal Newport style overhaul where I get everything in my life just organized, like one piece at a time, like not doing the usual thing I do where I'm like, I'm just going to fix everything today. And then I get tired partway through and then there's like stuff all over because I cannot bring myself to finish sorting through the stuff I'm sorting through. And I know I have to.
This reminds me of an amazing meme I saw the other day where it was like this, it was like, what was the caption? Something like, when I've decided to reorganize my whole room but get tired 2 hours in, and it's this person just like sitting in a pile of stuff because they've just taken all the stuff out of their closet. Like it's just, and they're just like, I don't want to finish now. What have I done?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very much my experience with doing things like that, which is why I think I find it so difficult to actually stick with anything, is because those moments happen so infrequently and then I just get exhausted from the whole experience.
Yeah.
And then I just feel resentful because I'm like, oh, now I have to do all this stuff. And so I think I need to do, like, because Cal Newport has all these episodes he's done of his podcast where he talks about like how to really restructure things, but how to do it like a little bit at a time more. It's more like something you do over the course of several months rather than in one big long sprint that, you know, because that just, it doesn't seem to work for me. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about just trying to overhaul is the word that keeps popping into my head. Like, I feel like I need to overhaul a lot in my life just to get things working better. Because what I've been doing has not been working. Some of what I've been doing has been working, and that stuff, but I have to try to sift through that and the stuff that isn't working that I have been desperately trying to cling to.
Right. And the thing that's been in my mind is kind of along the lines of like, stop trying so hard. How can I just embrace the fact that I will never figure it out and that things will never feel organized?
Yeah.
Like, how do I just become comfortable in that?
Yeah.
Because I think that if I could feel comfortable in the knowledge that I will never have it figured out, the path forward will never be clear, things will always feel slightly out of control and disorganized. If I could feel comfortable with that, I think that would make my life so much easier. Because we are trying constantly to kind of create order from chaos, and I think it's just unrealistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's something I'm trying to be aware of myself, is as I try to overhaul and organize things, I definitely have to recognize that I'm not going to have it all 100% together all the time. Like, even if things have to improve. Like, there's just the way I'm running my life right now is not working. That much is obvious to me. But I definitely feel like I think what you just said is something I definitely needed to hear, just that it's not going to be 100% figured out or clean or organized all the time. Like, there has to be some sort of midpoint that I can find. And again, sort of like maybe letting it happen more in cycles, where there are going to be times where things are better and times where things are more chaotic. And I've gotten a little bit better about that over the years, just because I prioritize my music. So often that means other things are not coming together, but I have taken that to an extreme in a lot of ways. So I do have to find a way to better balance that. But yeah, I resonate with what you said 100%.
So, good mental regroup.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this is a good thing to be doing right now, just in all areas. And yeah, definitely springtime feels like the right time to be doing that. So I felt like, I don't know if you got this, but I felt like this winter was really tough. Even though, like, weather-wise, it wasn't as bad as we've had some winters. Like, we didn't get as much snow. It wasn't as cold. I felt like emotionally I had a really difficult time this winter.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I don't think we're the only ones. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who've been feeling that, and
Yeah.
I do think it is like COVID hangover, where I think the reality of the last like essentially 4 years has sort of caught up with people.
Right.
I think we spent like so much of those years kind of on high alert and really tuned in to like what was going on, and
Yeah.
things were constantly changing. There was a lot of loss. There was a lot of, yeah, I mean, they were not good years for everyone. And I feel like maybe now we're just starting to process that. And that might be what's kind of contributing to this.
Yeah.
Because I've talked to so many people and it just seems like we're all kind of crashing
Yeah.
around the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, that can't be a coincidence. Like, I suspect that.
Actually, yeah. I think you mentioned it. I feel like I've been hearing from a lot of people who have really been like the last several months
Yeah.
have been really struggling with things. So yeah, so true. And it's interesting how long it takes us to process stuff. Like how much we are in the moment just trying to get through. And then once you get past it, you have to move quite a bit past what's happened before you're in a place where then it's like, well, that just happened. All this
Yeah.
stuff
Well,
happened and then you can actually process it.
and with COVID, like with the pandemic, it wasn't like it happened in 2020. Like
Yeah.
it started and then it continued. Like it was evolving, changing times for like a solid 2 years anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And still, like, I mean, it's still ongoing in many ways. Yeah. And then there's just so much on a world scale too. There's just so much going on that's
Yeah.
not positive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we're all just kind of like it's catching up with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel like
I think
similar
that's
to
a
how
great
like
way of putting it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like similar to how like when you're working overtime for a week or whatever and working really really hard,
Yeah.
and then the next week you get a cold because it's like
Yeah.
that, like the lack of
Yeah.
sleep and the too much coffee and all that stuff, all of a sudden it's caught up with you and your body's just been like, bleh. I feel like that's
Yeah.
kind of what's happened for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I feel like that's maybe something Brad Stulberg talked about in his book Master of Change, like where you're going through big changes. I think he might have mentioned something or heard it somewhere that it does take some time to have that processing moment. And yeah, what you're saying about getting sick after a week of work. I used to almost always get sick after exams.
Yeah.
Because I was stressed and I was up late studying and I probably wasn't eating as well. I was probably eating junk food. And yeah, I always seem to get a cold either during exam season or like usually after. And it'd just be like, yeah, having that crash point. Yeah, so I guess a lot, if not most of us, are having this sort of mental, emotional crash, which is why it feels like it's going on. And I feel like a lot of people had a rough 2023 too. Like I definitely did, just in terms of life stuff as well. But yeah, it's just and maybe yeah, I think you might be right. It might just be that collective as we're all starting to process whilst also still going through a lot of, like you said, a lot of crazy stuff. Crazy, not at all positive stuff in the world.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, for me, I think it's one of the reasons I always come back to music is because it's always one of the things that I feel like I do have some control over. And
it's centering.
And it gives me it gives me that escape. Like I was working on a song yesterday. I'm doing some production stuff for one of the songs on my album. And I remember looking at the clock. It was like almost time for me to have breakfast, but I was like, I'm just gonna go another 10 or 15 minutes. And I looked away from the clock, and then the next time I looked back, it was way past that time. Like I just completely got lost. And there are very few activities I can do that where I lose time like that.
Right.
And songwriting is really like the best one for me, where I can just completely lose myself in what I'm doing, especially at this stage where I'm going and I'm working on all these little details. I'm doing a lot of problem solving. I'm thinking, oh, I want this to sound more like this, or I want to make this work. And it's like, it really engages every part of my brain. And it's like I just don't have time to think about anything else. I'm just engaged with it. And I feel so fortunate to have music as an outlet, or to have something I'm practicing where I spend an hour just working on like 14 seconds of a guitar lick or something that I'm trying to learn, because it's so engaging and it's so fun to get better at something. And I feel like that's part of why I feel so called to help other people find that, whether that's, for me personally, like with music, of course, but then again, with this podcast, I hope we can encourage more people to do just whatever they feel called to do creatively, because what an incredible outlet to have. Because the alternative for a lot of people is, these numbing behaviors. It's scrolling on Instagram or TikTok for hours upon hours. And so you lose yourself, you lose all that time, but you don't feel good coming out of it. You feel worse because it's that doom scrolling. Or, people engage with drinking and drugs and food or whatever it is, like in all these addictive behaviors.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's like the way your brain is stimulated through creative acts or through things that, like, doing with your hands, building. I'm thinking like crochet, knitting, any of that stuff. Like it feels like a nicer kind of stimulation, whereas like, scrolling on Instagram, it's like an onslaught of sensory overload. It's not giving your brain a break.
It's very true.
It's tiring your brain even more because it's just like there's so much coming at you. I think you can say the same with TV too, and I wonder if that contributes to, like, when I do binge watch shows, I'm binge watching shows that I've watched a million times, and I think it's because my brain needs a break. But new content is not going to give my brain a break because it's going to be too much sensory overload.
Yeah, that's true.
As I'm processing new content. So I go to the shows I've watched a zillion times because they're relaxing, because I know them. And I've heard that, actually. I've heard people who have anxiety are more inclined to rewatch shows than those who don't have anxiety. And that makes sense to me. And I can 100% relate to that.
Yeah, it's like the number of shows that I've heard of that are supposed to be amazing that I'm like, I don't have time. I don't want to make the time. But I will rewatch, The Simpsons for the billionth time, or New Girl, or The Office, or Parks and Rec. Like, you have, like,
your go-tos.
Sort of go-to. Yeah. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I feel like that's as much as I think you can take anything obviously to an extreme. Like, and we've talked about this with video games before, because that's something I've struggled with. I become very easily pulled into a video game if I'm really into it. And so trying to find that balance where I'm letting myself have that experience, because it's one of the only things that quiets my brain while not letting it take over. I think binge watching TV can be like that too. Or maybe like binge watching is probably not ever going to be a really great thing. But if you're watching, is like right now I'm rewatching The Office. And it's just like an episode or two in the evenings. Like, my mom and I sign on to Skype together, and then we'll like both watch it. It's just like a nice way to just like watch an episode or two, and then I get to bed, and it's just like a nice, after a full day of, having done work and all of that, to just be able to engage with something that does help to quiet my mind, especially, because I often struggle to get sleep because my mind doesn't stop going. That seems to just help to just keep things a little bit quieter. So I feel like it used the right way. I think something like watching a show that you love that feels comfortable is a much better alternative to, spending that same time, like you said, like with that constant onslaught of all the stimulation, because it's all new information.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Of course, brings to my mind just the idea of self-awareness, just being able to cultivate enough self-awareness to know why you do the things you do and what helps to support you. Because looking for ways to feel better, I think is important. Like, nobody wants to feel bad. A lot of us feel crazy hyper stressed all the time. Like, the level of just constant anxiety that many of us feel on this daily basis it's not healthy. So to look for ways to help combat that, I think, is really important. But to have enough awareness to know what the stuff that's really going to help is for you. And obviously everybody, will find what works for them. But generally something like going for a walk is a great way to help just give your mind a chance to just kind of wander, sort through things. You get moving. If you're out in nature, like that is really good for you, again, versus opting to just sit on the couch and be on your phone and, like have a whole carton of ice cream or something. Like, that feels good in the moment, but I think there's just not the same payoff as doing the thing that's, harder to do.
Yeah.
Which is get up for a walk, but it does feel good once you get going, and then the after effects are much longer lasting. That's something I think about for myself personally anyways, is trying to look for the ways to help me feel better that are sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So like I definitely used to turn to food to help soothe myself because I was so stressed. And as I've let a lot of that go, it meant I had to find other things to do. And so a lot of that is like, as what I got so into walking a couple of years ago, because it's just such a nice way to just do something and to give yourself a way to feel better for longer after as well. But also, again, I just want to say, everybody is where they are, and that's perfectly fine. If you're at a place where I feel like we just recently talked about this. Maybe this was last week, where, it's a great step to just acknowledge that maybe you're at a place in your life where something needs to change, but you aren't ready to make that change. I think that's completely fine. So I don't want anybody to feel invalidated if you are at a place where, your scrolling is a problem, or anything you're using to self-soothe is ultimately becoming destructive. If you know that and you can acknowledge that is a really important first step. So please don't feel bad about not taking the steps yet. You'll get there. And I think it's easier to do that when you're not beating yourself up for doing those things. That you're just trying to do the best you can to take care of yourself and just to feel better. Like, people are just looking for relief. So I never fault anybody for how they do that, but I want people to find the things that help them to feel better over the longer term, because I know as I've been very gradually switching to other alternatives, I've felt a lot better, but it's still a work in progress for me, obviously. Oh, this is kind of unrelated, but sort of related, because we were talking about like TV shows and watching favorite TV shows. I thought a fun thing for us to do sometimes would be to have an episode where we just talk about some of our favorite things, and it could be like it could be themed if we wanted to be like our favorite tools for making music and art or whatever. It could be our favorite podcast, our favorite whatever. Like, just to have these like top 5 or top 10 episodes where we talk about maybe top 5, because I feel like we would be able to get a lot of mileage out of that. But just talk about some of the stuff we really enjoy, because I think that's some of the best stuff I found is from people who are just like talking about something they really like. So
I like that idea
for us to be able to share the stuff that we get a lot of joy out of or get a lot of use out of. And also for anybody listening, if you have suggestions, feel free to send them in. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, or if you want to get our opinion on something, or if you want to hear about our favorite, music or whatever, and let us know your thoughts.
I was just writing those ideas down.
Yeah, I jotted down a couple of ideas, which is a part of why we wanted to do this regroup as well, is that we had a couple of ideas but felt like they probably needed more time before we could talk about them, and so this felt like a good way just to kind of take everything out of our heads, and now we've got some more ideas. So, and I definitely feel as well like we're both wanting to, move this like, obviously the podcast is the main focus, but move this beyond the podcast and find other ways of helping artists. So, whether that's creating content for other places, it could be anything. So again, this is a good time to put in, if you have any ideas or anything you want help with, if there's anything you struggle with as far as either art goes, or if there's something you're dealing with as far as personal development goes, feel free to let us know. You could either do that by sending us an email, streamofartpodcast streamofartpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us also on Instagram, just DMS. We are at Stream of Art Podcast, of course. But also joining our Discord, we have a place where you can, submit questions or, just, again, start a conversation, because we do ultimately want to help people. As much as we enjoy doing this, just for our own personal sakes, we are hoping to reach people who will benefit from these conversations and from some of what we have to share, and maybe we have some experience that'll help people deal with something they're struggling with. So yeah, please don't hesitate to let us know. This is a safe space, so no judgment. Just let us know your thoughts.
Second that. Safe space for all.
Yeah. I was thinking too, because we do have a YouTube channel. So the only thing that gets uploaded there right now is just the audio version of our podcast. So, if you are somebody who happens to like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, you can go there. It's not that we don't have video, it's just the audio. But, if for whatever reason you do prefer YouTube for that, rather than Spotify or Podbean or whatever, feel free. It's up. We're just against Stream of Art Podcast. But it'd be fun to eventually have some stuff up there. Like, I know you and I both love Notion, obviously. It'd be really fun to do like a Notion deep dive, but to have to do that with video and everything. So actually, if anybody listening has questions about Notion, that would be really fun. I'd really love to dive into that more, because I think we both use it for everything pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah. So if anybody here is Notion curious and it just doesn't know where to start, let us know. We can talk about that. But I feel like, because I think we've talked about that as maybe being a potential episode, but I feel like that would be really effective to have like the visual component to really see.
It's a little tricky to do an episode about a platform, particularly if people don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could talk in broad, like, structural terms, in it, like a building a second brain style, like just those general ideas of like structuring things. But yeah, to visually see, like, specifically in Notion, we need the visual component for sure. Which is something I'll be learning how to do as I do my screen capture for my Ableton walkthrough.
Okay.
So I'll be able to figure out how to do that, and yeah, that'd be really fun to do some kind of a Notion walkthrough where we kind of just each demonstrate how we currently use Notion, because obviously it's always changing, but how we're currently using it to manage our music stuff, art stuff, life stuff, work stuff, all of that.
Yeah.
Also would be good incentive for me to get my Notion cleaned up, because I got a lot of things favorited on the side that I probably should not have. Yeah, some of this stuff needs to go. But yeah, this was nice just to get some stuff out of my head. I already feel like I'm thinking a little bit more clearly.
Oh, good.
For anybody listening, it might feel like a little bit of a weird one, just because Robyn's going to be away. So we were going to record 2 episodes today, but I think we're both just didn't have it in us. And again, we were sort of feeling like maybe we need to hit a little bit of a not a reset, but just to have that regroup. So we are going to talk about just what we have planned for the next couple of weeks, and just to kind of keep with tradition. So you want to talk about what you've got going on, even if it's nothing. I know you have your trip, but
yeah, that's the only thing
yeah.
Oh, beyond that.
Well, you can talk about your trip too, if you want to talk about that.
Well, I'll be heading to BC for a week, which will be nice. I haven't been out there for a while. But I don't have any plans beyond that. So yeah, I don't got anything. I've kind of cleared I had sort of tasks scheduled for late April, early May that I've just kind of cleared from my calendar, just because I'm like, I can't right now.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. Just let go of all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully your time will be restful. You'll be able to feel like you'll be able to mentally relax enough, because it's one thing to like take tasks off your list, but because you're somebody who always feels like that pressure to do stuff, I know mentally it's very hard to turn that off. But hopefully you can find that so that you can really feel like you've had a proper rest.
Well, it helps because like I'm going to be somewhere where I don't have my computer and I don't have my art supplies. So it's like I don't have a choice. Yeah. So I don't think it'll be an issue to just like let myself off the hook because it's like there is no alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you got going on?
Oh, I have, I think, just more of the same stuff. You know, I'm doing my music stuff. Oh, I'm going to be posting that video on YouTube. And probably by the time you're back and we're recording our next episode, I'll probably have at least a couple up. So I have all that stuff. I'm still doing the artist way and all of that. So yeah, I don't really have anything specific planned. I do, again, I feel like I'm in the need for some kind of an overhaul, but part of the tension in me is to, you know, do that kind of a shift while still moving things forward that I feel like I'm okay to move forward. So, you know, there's that part of me that always feels like I want to just stop everything and just do a full overhaul. But again, that only goes so long before then I lose steam. And then it's like I have a mess all around me and then I'm trying to do my work and it's, you know, everything's crazy. So I think I might have to sit down and just come up with some kind of a game plan that's a little bit more sustainable where I'm making these changes, but they're happening a little bit more realistically and in a way that's not interfering so much with my music that it pulls me away. And because that's one thing I noticed this week, just getting back into the music and in full swing, I feel so much better. I feel like myself. Like I just do not feel like myself when I'm not engaged with music properly and with my guitar playing and all of that. So I have to be careful not to lose myself completely. So yeah, not a whole lot, but I feel like I'm in this kind of weird stage where not a lot is happening, but a lot is happening. Like again, like from the outside, it's not going to look like much is happening, but I feel like I've got a lot going on, and it'll hit a point where all of a sudden the actual external repercussions will just like start cascading down and just it'll be like this big sweep. But it feels just. Yeah, it feels like a lot is going on, but not a lot is going on. It's a very strange place to be in. But yeah, I guess I'll do the close off for this one. This might be coming at the tail end of the second part of the episode if I split it. So, anyways, nothing changes. You can still send questions and comments to streamofartpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram. We are at streamofartpodcast. You can follow each of us individually on Instagram. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the links are in the show notes and all of that. And always like in the show notes, there are always going to be, you know, if I've quoted anybody or if either of us has quoted somebody, I will put the quote, if I can find it, into the show notes. I put, you know, links to books. So if we talk about any of the books I've talked about today, I'll put a link in the show notes. So if you're interested in checking it out, you can go do that. I have timestamps now, and they should be clickable. I think if you listen on Spotify, I figured out how to make them clickable. So if you are, you know, listening to an episode and like last week, you don't want to hear us go on a 6-minute tangent about Nintendo 64 games, you can skip ahead. I have timestamps for things like that. Or if you want to go back, if we've said something and you want to go back and hear it again, the chances are pretty good there'll be a timestamp to help you navigate that. So feel free to check that out. And yeah, that's it. So have a great week, everyone, or a great couple weeks. Again, I'm not sure. We might be missing a week depending on when this comes out. Who knows? But we will see you in the next episode. Bye.